I'm Will Leach and this is the Commission Files from Commission Christian Radio. And this time we're talking about someone who works in a shop. Well, it's not really a shop. It's not as simple as that. And she doesn't so much work in the shop, so it's not as simple as that either. It's more that she runs the place in business and operational terms, and it was all her idea in the first place. And it isn't as simple as that either, because it isn't even her main job. She's quite another, quite important one, quite a bit separated from it. But it's all about taking risks for God in a most unexpected way, and I've been fascinated learning about it, and you're going to be fascinated learning about it too. So a big Commission Files welcome to Julie Hoey of Sonas, a cooperative in the Market Square in Lisburn. Welcome, Julie.
Oh, delighted to be here, Will.
What is Sonas?
Sonas is the Irish word for happiness. It's a cooperative. We have a shop unit in the heart of Lisburn, right beside the Linen Museum, opposite Smith Patterson. And we are a refill grocer, café and event space. We are open Wednesday to Saturday, and we are a big part of the local community, and we seek to create a space where, community matters and people can access good food.
Are you a bit new agey?
Well, I don't think I would say I was new agey, because kind of the new age is kind of old now, isn't it, really?
It's a bit
but
passé, yes.
I guess we're holistic in the sense that we see food as being connected to soil and to land and to a place. Ireland and Northern Ireland have an amazing, still huge numbers of producers, local producers of food and drink, and it's one of our biggest success stories and one of our biggest exports. And we're close to our producers, we're close to our land, we can see it when we drive around, and those of us who live in the country will be aware of it. But yeah, I guess we care about the whole of the earth and what it produces, and making sure that we treat it well and enjoy it.
Because God created it?
Yeah, I guess for me that's a big part of the vision behind it, that food is something that has been given to us to provide us with sustenance, but I also believe that it's been given to us to provide us with joy in preparing food and eating food together. It's always amazed me that we don't just have enough food that we need. You know, we're not fed like astronauts with little packets of powdered food which just gives them the sustenance and the vitamins and the minerals that they need. We have more than enough. We have abundance. We have seasonality. We have so many different flavours and so many things around the world that are different in different parts of the world. So yeah, to me, food speaks of the abundance, the goodness of God. Yeah.
You've talked about your producers being close. Who are they? Who are those producers?
So we have lots of different local producers from Steeper Culture who make kombucha in Drumbo, just a few miles out the road. We have Ballydown Creamery who make Greek-style yoghurt and kefir. We have the wondrous Rowandale Milk who've just started supplying us with our barista milk, but also milk in glass bottles so that you can recycle those, as well as their lovely milkshakes and cream. We have Dave who grows for Green Goodness Farm on Glenavy Road in Lisburn. We have Jackson Rose ginger wine and lots of other products that they make, including some of their lovely new lemonade. We've got any number of them. We've Suki Tea, started 20 years ago in Belfast, global brand. Their global headquarters are right here in Lisburn. Yeah, and we've got Matthew Algie Coffee, which, yes, it's from Glasgow, but their All Ireland office is also in Lisburn. So we love to support local. And those are just a few of the local brands we have. We've many, many more, and we're expanding too.
I'm fascinated how the relationship develops. Do you turn up one day and say, we'd love to sell your stuff? Or how do you make the connection that becomes a business relationship that serves both partners, as it were?
Well, as you know, I like to talk, and, I like to meet people. And I also I enjoy social media. I enjoy connecting with people and seeing their stories, and people are so creative on social media about telling their stories. I guess I read books and read magazines and read newspapers, but I also go to food fairs, and we've lots of amazing food fairs, and you get to meet different local producers just starting out, bringing their product to market, looking for feedback. But anything that's good and local, we'll definitely consider. We have hyper-local honey from Kai, which is flying off the shelves at the moment. So, yeah, we love it.
Hyper-local, I love that. Because people can think of, well, I know the road, the fields, the farm where this comes from, which I think instinctively a lot of us would rather eat that and know it's well produced than think of it as having had to come through the Straits of Hormuz or wherever else, on the way. How are you received, first of all, by those producers? Are they delighted that someone is selling the way you're selling and the kind of things you're selling?
Well, I think you have a different relationship with them because they know you and you know them, and they're taking a chance on you, and to an extent you're taking a chance on them. Lots of us are at a similar stage, so just as we've only been open for 2.5 years, lots of these food producers are starting out. It means that you have to show grace to one another because you're all learning the ropes at the same time. But I just am overwhelmed with the kindness of small-scale producers in this country. It's more costly for them to do business with me than it is for them to do business with Tesco. It's more...
Because of volume? Or
volume, deliveries, etc. Maybe I'm just not as organised as Tesco in managing all my invoices, but I think what they lose from that, they gain from someone who actually will actively talk about their product. So when you walk into Tesco, nobody walks up to you and goes, do you know that Mucha Kombucha is made by Brona in Benburb? And it's organic and it comes in lots of different flavours. And she just set up this company a few years ago and she's going from strength to strength. Whereas when you come into our shop, I'll try not to say all of that to you because that might be a bit overwhelming. But, if you show any interest in it, you'll always get a hello first. Well, you'll always get a hello first.
Well, I've had more than a hello in that shop.
But we do like to let people know that the story behind the food, because I think in this day and age when we can measure everything and we've got our smart watches and things like that, and we're all worried about health and well-being and whatever, and we're thinking about our sleep and we're thinking about our intake of magnesium and we're thinking about our vitamins and our fitness. There's a whole load of intangible things that I think are deeply reminiscent of the Christian life and how to live as a person of faith, which is, eating with others, taking time over things, caring about the names of people. If you look at the Bible, there are lists and lists of names of people. And why are those there? Well, they're there because each person matters and each person has a specific job to do. So I guess that they also get more shout outs on social media perhaps from us than they might get from some of their bigger producer shops too. But yeah, I think there's room for us all and we can take a chance, but we're also really, really keen to have local products because we feel that it matters and we feel that it reminds people where your food comes from. And importantly, I think we feel that it means that you value that food more. You're less likely to throw it out. You're more likely to treat it with the reverence that it deserves, given the amount of work that's been put into growing it and producing it. So all those things matter.
I alluded to it in my very facetious opening about you working in a shop, although in a very literal sense that's exactly what you do. But you do have another job. I hesitate to call it a day job because I don't know which takes the most hours, but you have a job that's salaried, a traditional, normal job. You're a civil servant. You're working for the Scottish Government. It's not what this interview is about, but you do have responsibilities and you do lots of remote working and you've work trips and big responsibilities in the realms of public governance and policy. So why would someone doing that think, I'm going to open a shop in the square in Lisburn? Because that is a big, big step when you have other responsibilities. Where did the idea come from?
So the idea came from where lots of ideas came from during the pandemic, which was that we all had time to pause and stop and ask ourselves, what does our world look like? What did our world look like before we went into lockdown? And what might we want it to look like after? I was involved in a community growing project, and if you've ever been involved in one of those, you'll know that you have more courgettes than you can ever manage to eat.
Really?
And we were looking at the high street and seeing lots of empty shops, and it was the rise of people talking about pop-up shops and meantime shops. Even though I've worked in local and central government all my life, I've always been quite passionate about the high street. I've always been into retail. I spend less now, but I love the whole theatre of retail, merchandising, window dressing. I did write to Jim Will Fix It to do some window dressing in Harrods, but thankfully he didn't reply.
Yes.
So I think I love the whole bit about retail, because to me it's so much more than buying stuff. It's about a transaction, a conversation, and it's about meeting one another's needs, and there's creativity in that. It doesn't have to be utilitarian. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So I guess I've always been interested in shops. In fact, one of my proudest moments as a 10-year-old was being stopped in a shop in the Lake District and asked the price of something, and suddenly feeling, oh my goodness, I look like a shop assistant. So that was an interesting one.
Oh, it was all there.
It was all there. So, and in my government, local and national experience, the bits that I love a lot are when I meet the public, when I'm out talking about things and doing things and working with stakeholders. Yeah, all those things really matter. So I guess we were a co-op. We thought, let's get a shop unit, give this a go, open every Saturday morning for 2 hours, make a pot of coffee, sell some excess vegetables. And yeah, sometimes our ideas get out of control. So here we were with a shop. There you go. And having to make that work. But there is a sense in which in your 50s, and I'm in my late 50s now, the words, if not now, then when, if not me, then who, become, they're in very sharp focus. Whilst it wasn't in my mind right from the start to lead this project, increasingly I ended up doing that. And I think I saw that I had to make it work, and it was a very long gestation of a project. Everything post-COVID was very hard to make happen. I think setting up a business is hard, but setting up as a cooperative is really hard. Most of the systems don't understand that you're different from another type of organisation. And, we couldn't get people to do things that normally you would have been able to get people to do, like shop fitting and whatever. So, yeah, it was all born out of quite a lot of adversity, possibly quite a lot of naivety, and just an increasing sense of, well, this is going to be a journey that will deepen my faith, because it's scary, and I haven't been in a scary position like this before, and that was that. And then you have to jump in and open and make it work.
I'm going to be horribly general here, and you're going to say you can't make generalisms like that, but you know what I mean when I say this. Mm-hmm. Long-time civil servants tend to be risk averse, and before I make that sound really negative, it's actually completely understandable when you're handling public money.
Even desirable.
Exactly. Your stewardship of public money, that is not yours. You're accountable.
That's right.
It has to be bang on. Where in ordinary business, if you want my word, you've got to be confident. You can take a punt on something and invest on something, wondering if it's going to work.
Yeah.
Now, in difficult times, you maybe don't want to do too much of that, frankly, but you can do it. So I'm wondering how much a change in mindset was part of it for you, because you were doing things that on paper didn't make any sense at all to try to do.
It was huge. I did a lot of work on mindset, because I really wasn't there. I had to do a lot of rethinking. There's a guy who's called John Acuff who's written a book like Soundtracks. It's called Soundtracks, and it's about his central thesis is, if we allow negative words to spin through our head and we allow those to speak to ourselves and for us to live in the light of those negative words and soundtracks, why don't we just pivot and make them positive soundtracks and allow them to spin around our heads and to give us that sense of the capacity that we have to do impossible things. So yeah, stand in front of the mirror, reading out your soundtrack.
Really interesting.
It really required quite a big change of life. It's not that my work hadn't been demanding, satisfying, challenging, even made me feel vulnerable a lot of the time, but this was totally different. So yeah.
Yeah, it's grown-up stuff you're doing in your other job, your government job, and big decisions that sometimes affect the whole of the UK. So there's someone who's saying, but I love Lisburn and I'm going to give something back to the city.
Yeah.
Was there an element of, I love the place we have currently settled, I want to give something?
Lisburn was where my parents retired to, and by an amazing chain of events, we ended up buying a house in Lisburn and then deciding that we would eventually live in that house and move back from Scotland, which we did 10 years ago. So June 16 we moved. I think I'd always liked Lisburn when I visited my mum and dad and thought it was really lovely. And my husband and I often talked about where we lived and whatever. And I remember him saying, well, we could live in Lisburn. And it had never occurred to me to live in Lisburn. So then we bought a house 2 doors down from my mum and dad. I didn't see the inside of it before we bought it. They didn't know about it. Our son didn't know about it.
Not a lot of women would take that risk.
Well, I know, but I'm not a lot of woman. So I think, and I guess I really liked Lisburn. So where I lived in the southeast of Glasgow, we'd lost our high street by then. You know, it had been taken over in really just with tanning booths. Vapes weren't a thing then. So we had tanning booths, we had fast food shops. We lost 3 butchers, we lost 2 greengrocers. Yeah, loads of things. All our banks closed.
And each of those losses
it's huge.
Is a wee business tragedy.
It's a wee business tragedy, but it's a loss of social fabric that breaks up the social fabric. So when you lose a certain number of shops, people stop going there. You know, it has to be a very intentional thing, and it's quite when you see the shops that have closed down, it's not a happy thing to see. And it's much easier to go to your nearest equivalent of Forest Side and see something sparkly and whatever. So I guess what I saw in Lisburn 10 years ago was there were still family businesses. There were still butchers, bakers, greengrocers. There were cobblers. There were lots of the high street stores as well, which were still there at that time. There were department stores. There was the McCall's and the Smith Patterson and whatever.
And not a step from where you are, the church in which my wife and I were married. So there's a natural affection for places in people's lives.
Totally.
That you connect to.
Totally. So I loved it. And over the intervening years, I grew to love it more. And yeah, it's very important to me. Whilst our business is called Sonas, I often call it Sonas Lisburn because to me it is about getting people into Lisburn and to think about how lovely the place that they live really is. People do love living in Lisburn, but they also sometimes take it for granted, I think.
You used a word a moment ago, you said naivety.
I specialise in that, Will.
Last time in this podcast we were hearing from Dave Linton of Madlock, the luggage company. So an entrepreneur with a church worker background who had to learn about business and entrepreneurship, and although it turns out he's really, really good at it.
Yeah.
I said to him, did nobody tell you it was hard? It was like when our kids do things and surprise us, we think, did nobody tell you this was really hard? Because I think it's really hard. So where did you find your governance knowledge and your really good practice experience from public service, but where did you find your nuts and bolts, commercial realities, I don't have a pension and secure income, business instincts?
Well, some might say I haven't found them yet, Will. You know, I do business in my own way, and I know that some of that is really refreshing and different. I know some of it's surprising. I know that some of it doesn't make a lot of sense to other people, but it's how I've chosen to do business. I guess the other thing is that I've benefited hugely from friends who want to help me, and that's what community is. I have lots of different groups of friends and community, but I have friends who really care for me, who will pray with me, who'll give me advice, who'll interview me on podcasts. I have friends who will, for example, the Chamber of Commerce in Lisburn, it's run at the moment, the president's this amazing woman, Ruth Young, who I think you know, Will.
I do. And she is amazing. Yes, you are, Ruth.
She is amazing. And yeah, and I've been involved in the Chamber for many years now, predating quite considerably my time in business. So my church family, Lagan Valley Vineyard, was a member of the Chamber of Commerce in order to cause, to indicate and demonstrate our desire for the flourishing of the city of Lisburn.
There can't be many churches that do that are part of a Chamber of Commerce. Am I wrong? That sounds unusual to me.
It is unusual. But it was the right thing to do, and it was a really powerful thing to do. And from a perspective of seeking to understand, and it probably did shape my understanding of what businesses are up against, and also the joy of business, and also, frankly, the very different way in which business people see life. They're much more for risk. They're much more used to taking risks. I would think about Genesis, the Genesis network, and Daniel and I would often meet and have chatted about this before I opened the business, but just starting to understand how people saw things differently. And I guess, just feel really surrounded by people who want to cheer you on. Local business is great. There's no one who understands local business better than other local traders. I want to very specially mention, Katrina and Kathy at the Daily Apron. They supply our sourdough, but they are people who walk the talk and who demonstrated a huge amount of care for our community during the pandemic, when they pivoted from being, a busy coffee shop and bakery into, meal production and meal delivery. And whilst they are very exceptional, there's a whole bunch of other exceptional people like them in Lisburn running their own businesses and also facilitating business. I'm thinking about people in lots of different sectors. I'm thinking of some of the folk that I know in our council who are very supportive of business. The city centre team in Lisburn are amazing. Yeah, there's so many people. We did have a business tribe, which is a small group in our church, and lots of support there for a business. I remember opening, we had 3 or 4 of those friends from church coming to write labels for us, to unwrap furniture, and basically just to hold my hand and say, you're going to be all right, but you do need to open. Go on, you can do it.
You're listening to the Commission Files. Time for a quick break.
Azariah and Abigail have a big problem.
What's wrong? Abigail?
Oh, Azariah, it was awful.
What?
The women. Some of them were at the well when I went earlier. Oh, Azariah, why do they despise me so? The names they called me, I've never done any of them any harm.
I've a good mind to go out and give a few of them a piece of my mind.
Oh, Azariah, I love you so, but that wouldn't do any good. They'd only turn on you too.
Anyway, the outcome of our talk later was that she was going to go to the well at a time when no one else did, in the middle of the day. It was very hot then, but at least she'd be left in peace.
But there's a stranger at the well, and their lives are changed forever. Commission presents The Samaritan. You can hear this series and many others. Just search for Commission Radio Drama wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, this is Drew Gibson, here to remind you about Commission's sister podcast, Faith, Hope and Sport. Great interviews, great sporting stories, and plenty of reflections on how lives of Christian faith and competitive sport can be lived together. Find us wherever you look for podcasts. Just search for Faith, Hope and Sport.
This is the Commission Files with Will Leach, and we're chatting with Julie Hoey of Sonas Lisburn. We've talked about a step of faith. We've talked about your church fellowship. It seems a good time to ask you about how Julie knows Jesus Christ, your faith story. You were raised in County Down, up on a hilltop.
Rathfriland on the hill. Yeah.
I know so many exceptionally remarkable people from Rathfriland for some reason. It doesn't make any sense because, of course, I was North Derry and Coleraine and so on. But anyway, tell me about growing up. Tell me about little Julie.
So I was born in 1969 in Belfast, and then moved to Rathfriland when I was 2, and Antrim when I was 11, and then Glasgow when I was 18, and then back to Lisburn 10 years ago. So my father's a Presbyterian minister, and my mum and he just were a great team. And
so you moved when he got a call.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. We moved when Dad Dad got a call to a different church. Yeah, that's how it works. And I remember as a 7-year-old reading my Scripture Union notes and asking Jesus to be my saviour. Those would probably have been the words I would have used then. And I've been a follower of Jesus ever since, not always progressing at the same speed or at the same trajectory, just a very clear sense of God's kindness and His mercy and His grace to me all through my life. Probably in my teenage years, I saw quite a growth in my own faith as I was part of a youth group where we'd meet together for prayer at 7 a.m, and for teenagers that's just really hard, and yet we loved it.
It's getting on for miraculous.
It is. So a very special few years in my teenage years that were very formative. Then going to university and having to learn about the fact that your faith and practice your faith away from your parents, which is different, and learning life in Scotland, where even though we're not that far away culturally, and in terms of the span of Christianity and the experience of Christianity, we changed Scotland, probably the fastest secularising part of Europe at one point. From people of the book to that, and just a sense of trying to work out what did life look like? How did you work out your faith in your everyday ordinary life? And I didn't really have words for that. So my faith and my working life were like, parallel, but they didn't meet very often. I had no praxis for how to do that. And I guess I grew quite a lot again through reading Mark Green's book, Thank God It's Monday, and starting to redeem my work as worship and as an offering to God and as something that He had called me to do and equipped me to do. And I guess, just navigating many years of infertility and reading Pete Gregg's book, God on Mute, which had quite an impact on me and on my prayer life, being an elder in the Church of Scotland, along with my husband, and loving church leadership, but also longing for a deeper sense of the Holy Spirit, working in Mission Scotland with so many people. Mission Scotland was set up when Billy Graham came to Scotland, but essentially grew into something that was trying to help people think about putting their faith into practice in their everyday ordinary lives. And we would have used as our text Romans 12, 1 and 2 in the Message paraphrase. So bringing out the God colours and the God flavours in our lives, and thinking about how we do that. And then moving to Northern Ireland and realising that there were many, many churches in Lisburn, and a real heart to understand the Church of God in Lisburn. So visiting lots of different church gatherings and communities, and coming to a position where we decided to be part of Lagan Valley Vineyard, which was quite a departure from the Church of Scotland, a big change in our way we gather as church and practice as church, but one that I was up for, and one that has really opened up my eyes to the whole richness of God in a new way.
Was there a morning when you woke up not long back in Northern Ireland? And I ask this because I had one. Mm-hmm. I came back much quicker. I came back after a mere 12 years. But when you thought, what have I done? Now, mine was because, and this is something I've discussed in other podcasts, where it was the Holy Cross dispute.
Yeah.
And a blast bomb was thrown at those children. Mm-hmm. Within the first week of me coming home, and my wife and I sat down that evening and said, have we made a terrible mistake? Have we got, you always question what you've done, and you think, and if you're wise, you turn to God and say, well, if you're with us, help us get this.
Yeah.
Did you, have you found it difficult? Because it's a very different place from what you left.
Yeah. Weirdly, I don't think I have had the what have I done reaction, but I found returning very emotional, and I realised I'd left in 87 when I was 18, and I was still carrying all of what Northern Ireland was like then, and I mustn't have assumed that it was going to be the same. Clearly I knew that time had elapsed, but everywhere had echoes everywhere. Everywhere had echoes of those horrible days. And I found that really hard to start with. Everywhere I went, I remembered bad stuff, and I didn't like that. But I just sat with it because it's as well not to ignore these things, just sit with them. And over time, I began to see the Northern Ireland of now as opposed to then. But it took quite a long time for it to happen. Yeah, I found it very, very sad. Because I think it's not that I'd forgotten about it or that but I guess it wasn't part of our daily experience. So yeah, that did shock me. So there were lots of times that I thought, wow. And of course, we did come back because both our families are here, and our son, who was born in Glasgow, in Rotten Row, would tell everyone that he was born in Northern Ireland because he loved Northern Ireland so much. But of course, he missed Scotland rather predictably.
He couldn't stick it.
Rather predictably, he missed Scotland a bit, but he's grown to love here as well. And, it's just a wee hop across the water. And we've got friends there and we've got friends here, and we're just so blessed. So, yeah, I find Northern Ireland very rich now, and I think it's rich because of what I lived as a child, but also what I lived in my time away and the way that I see things now. I think in many ways I am maybe more curious about culture and history of this place than maybe some people who've lived here all their lives because they haven't had a break from it. And I don't say that to make myself sound better or to criticise those people. I say it just as an observation that
it can be helpful to have looked from afar.
Having lived away, I can see so many things that are so good about Northern Ireland and that I really treasure. And I also know the things that we're in danger of losing that we haven't yet lost. And part of the reason of setting up this shop was in some ways to capture some of those as well.
Yeah. Mind you, I think we both know
food production.
We'll cover a whole lot there. But, the ripples from the days of conflict are still bouncing around.
Yeah.
And secondly, this place can still, on occasion, totally break your heart.
Yes,
and that's, I guess, anywhere any of us can live. And I think that's just part of understanding things. So, the Sonas Co-op, all the skills you've brought to it, the skills you've learned, all the work putting in, how often do you and your husband sit and talk about the parable of the talents and think, better read that again? Because dig another one up.
So, well, it's funny you mentioned that parable. So that's one of the parables in the Gospels that I really didn't understand for many years, or I understood and now see it as a misunderstanding. So I used to feel like Jesus was very harsh towards the one guy who got the one talent and dug a hole and put it in the hole for safekeeping. And I remember reading an article that just outlined the fact that it was because he misconstrued the character of his master. And as with so many parables, the mysteries and the truths and whatever are hidden so that we have to look for them. So, yeah, I have a different perspective on risk now. Risk is spelt R-I-S-K and faith is spelt R-I-S-K. Let's just put it that way. I think risk is one of those things that we can so easily see as negative, but it trains us to trust in the things that matter as opposed to the things that don't. Yeah, for me, one of the things about running a business that is hard is the fact that from what people who support businesses through banks and other places tell me, it takes 3 to 5 years to make a profit. Businesses can be successful and then become unsuccessful financially. They can also be, there are just many, many risks that you take because you're responsible for people and paying people at the end of the month. I guess the parable of the talents says to me something a bit more hopeful, which is that it's good to speculate. It's good to try new things. It's good, as I talk about the business often, as telling a better story. about demonstrating a new perspective. When we say the Lord's Prayer, we say, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So as Christians, we're about the kingdom coming in the now as well as the not yet. So the kingdom isn't yet here in its fullness, the kingdom of God, but the kingdom of God is always breaking through and is coming through in little splashes of light. So I see what we do as a means to expanding my mind to the impossibility of what we're doing, and the fact that through God all things can be made possible, all things can be redeemed, and all things, even tough things, can bear fruit.
29 years, could you not have sounded even a little bit Scottish?
Well, I do sometimes. I can do a very good Glaswegian accent, and I put my mind to it, but I'll not do it now.
No, we want our Glaswegian listeners and friends to stay with us.
We do.
So you have the other job that you juggle, which you find interesting and stimulating and demanding. Yeah. And then you have the Sonas job.
Yeah.
And the dark days, and I came through your door unhelpfully on one of them, when not many people come across the door. Right. And everything can seem maybe sometimes too hard, and there's too many setbacks. Something happens completely out of your control in society or in business or in finance or something.
Yeah.
When you juggle all that, what keeps you going? What keeps you trying? Now, the reason I'm wondering about that is because a lady did come in just before I left and kept saying, I've been meaning to come in here for months. And part of me thinks, what a blessing she's come in and she's chatting to Julie. Part of me's thinking, why didn't you come in months ago? How many times have you walked past a ridiculous woman? Really unfair things to think. But you know what I mean? You can't stand outside on the pavement and drag people in. So what keeps you going? How do you cope?
Yeah. So I mentioned mindset earlier, and you have to work on your mindset. I believe very strongly that the business has been established to demonstrate radical hospitality. So everyone is welcomed, everyone gets a hello, and that goes for everyone, including people who others might hope don't come into their shop, maybe because they look like trouble or whatever. You'll find me offering glasses of water and bathroom facilities and whatever to people who perhaps others might not. And I don't do that because I'm a better person. I do that because the love of God constrains me to show grace to others the way I've been shown grace. And it brings me great joy. And I don't mind if people think I'm naive. I'm okay with that. I think for me, the way in which we operate means that I've always had compassion for shop workers. I think they work incredibly hard. I think shop work is physically very hard. But if you own the shop and it's your business, it's doubly hard, because regardless of how you feel in the morning and regardless of how trade is, your job is to be there, to create a welcoming environment, and to greet people and to create something really magical, you know. Commerce is theatre.
I like that. It's that curious mixture of being financially committed, which is no small thing, but also emotionally committed. Yeah. It's going to get you right here if something doesn't work.
Yeah, sometimes it is really hard. What really helps me is people. Part of that's taking your focus away from yourself. So asking people how, what's been happening in your day, how's your day been? We've loads of regular customers and they minister to me as much as I minister to them. I'm sure they maybe don't realise that, but they do. And if I'm feeling low, I will put myself in the way of people, because that's what reminds you of why you do what you do. And we can be a blessing to others even when we're feeling a bit low, maybe especially when we're feeling a bit low. It was a shock to me when it took us a long time to open the shop. And I remember realising after a few days that we had to keep doing this every day that we're open. I'm proud that we've opened most days I think there's only 2 days that we've missed since we opened, that we should have been opened and we didn't. And to me, that is constancy and resilience. But really, lots of people pray for me. I have a great team, and I now, can depend on them to open up and do some of the things that I did on my own to start with. And we've just some of the best people we've had working with us before and still working with us. But yeah, I wouldn't underestimate how hard it is. And if you're listening to this and you want an easy action, I would say go into a local shop and ask a shopkeeper how they are, or show some interest in them, and perhaps spend some money with them. Or if you can't afford to or don't want to, share their posts on social media and encourage other people to shop local. It really matters, and it is encouraging.
Julie, thank you so much for joining us on the Commission Files. Thanks for telling your story. Thank you for doing it with such, depth and honesty and compassion, and for being interesting. You mentioned loads of people that you thanked. I should point out, dear listener, Daniel Jackson of Genesis was interviewed in this very chair in the spring of 2025. Dave Linton of Madlug was the last episode we've done, so you only have to go back one. There's loads of fascinating people, just like Julie, on the Commission Files. But we want to wish you every best wish as you press on.
Thank you.
And run the race and keep on opening. And thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to our followers or subscribers to the Commission Files. You can join them if you want. You can learn about making radio programmes or podcasts, or how to support Commission in our work so we don't give up. Just visit commissionradio.org. There are ways to support us, ways to join us, ways to pray for us. You'll find links to our YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn pages until we think of a new one to have. And I'll be back soon. Until then, bye-bye.